Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of Couch Commentary, the show where I meticulously deconstruct a random movie. This episode is about a movie from 2017 that I love. It Comes at Night. This movie was received fairly well from critics, but absolutely annihilated by audiences, most people citing that it's incredibly boring and nothing happens. Today I want to deconstruct these arguments about the movie and tell everyone why they're wrong and why this movie is amazing. And if you think that it's boring and dumb, you're wrong. Don't mean to be aggressive, but I am meaning to be aggressive. So let's just jump into this. I'm watching it on this TV here, and I will talk about the specific scenes that I think make this movie work overall and what scenes potentially don't. Obviously, this movie is not perfect, but it's pretty dang close. I think this movie is great. So let's jump into this. I just hit play. First off, from the very first scene in this movie, it works.
Dad, can you hear me? You don't need to fight it. You could just let it all go. Okay. Everything's okay. I love you, Dad. I do. I'm so sorry.
Immediately you notice that things are off. So one, it sets up the premise of the movie, which is that people in this universe are getting horrifically sick, and the people that aren't sick are very, very scared of it with their gas masks, and they're taking all kinds of precautions so that they don't get sick. So it sets up the premise, for one. Second thing it does is it sets the tone. This very dark, depressing, grim atmosphere. And it sets it up so well with this opening sequence where this old man who we've never seen before, is being talked to by his daughter, presumably, and his family, and they're telling him that, it's the time is up. We love you, but it's just time to let go. So it sets up the tone of this movie to be very dark, very depressing and somber. The third thing it does is it sets up the characters, and it sets them up brilliantly. Every single character here, you understand just from this one scene. The last thing that it does is it sets up the pacing of the movie, which is important. It sets up this movie to be these long, drawn-out, meticulously put-together shots that are just gorgeous. And I won't really talk too much about the technical aspects of this movie because they're all very well done. Like, the shots here are just amazing. The long, drawn-out, flowing shots that really set the tone and the pace of this movie to be this slow-burning, methodically paced thing. So I won't talk too much about the cinematography or the performances here because that's not really what I want to get into here. I want to get into what this movie is and why I think it works. And this scene sets everything up perfectly. Like, my goodness, this scene is amazing. So we're about 10 minutes into the movie now, and this is the first time that we get a nightmare sequence, which this movie is filled with. And there's a lot of people that are saying that the nightmare sequences are not good, that they don't serve any purpose to this movie. And I would refute that point by just saying that the nightmare sequences are important because they set up two things. Every nightmare sequence sort of sets up two things. One, we get the aspect ratio change, which clues us in as the audience to the fact that it is different, that this is a much more claustrophobic environment, that it's a nightmare, that when you're in a nightmare you feel restricted, you feel claustrophobic, and that's what the aspect ratio here sets up, that it kind of pays off with later. And the second thing that the nightmare scenes set up is the fact that this kid is the audience for this movie. The movie is literally, most movies figuratively do this, but this movie literally puts us in the mind of this character, and we see exactly what he sees in his nightmares, and we see why he's having nightmares and what he's afraid of, and that sort of influences the movie as a whole for what the audience thinks and what the audience perceives as a threat. And that's why this character is the audience of this movie. That's why this character embodies the audience, because it is his nightmares and what he sees and what he thinks is sort of exactly what the audience is thinking. Like, what are we supposed to be afraid of here? And we see these nightmares, and that sort of leaves the impression of this is maybe what we should be afraid of, even though we never blatantly see anything. He's the only character that just has his hands in everything. He spies on people, he eavesdrops, he does all these things to gather information that other characters don't have. And that's what this movie does. That's what a lot of movies do, is that kind of is what builds tension, is that the audience knows something that the characters don't. And we see this character who knows what we know, but nobody else knows it. So we're on his side constantly, and when he's trying to explain things to the other characters in the movie, but they don't quite believe him because they weren't there, And that's what this movie does very, very well. It just sets the tone and the tension with basically with one character.
My family's all that matters to me. I know you can understand that. You're a good person. You're just trying to protect your family. But don't let mine die because of it. Help me and I can help you.
All right, so we're about 23 minutes into this movie now, and we're at the scene where we're having this wonderful back and forth exchange between Joel Edgerton and the intruder guy, who we don't really know yet. The scene that we skipped was when we first meet him, and it's first established that there are other people in this world that are not sick or infected by whatever it is. And this scene is amazing on its own. The cinematography here is wonderful, and it sets up the fact that there are people in this world trying to survive, just like the family is. And it sort of appeals to the dad's human emotions, to that he's protecting his family and this guy's protecting his family, and all that they're trying to do is that. So this guy's story appeals to him, and they go to get this guy's family. And the scene coming up here that I'll just skip to, the scene coming up here is when Joel Edgerton goes with this guy to get the family, and we see more people, and Joel Edgerton gets attacked here. This is about 30 minutes into the movie now, and we finally get to see some hostility in this world. And that is what I love about this movie. This scene sort of punctuates what I love about this movie, and it's that the thing that is a threat in this movie is humans. We really never see anybody sick or any suspicions of something that will want to harm humans other than themselves. And that is what I love about this movie and what the title sort of plays with. It Comes at Night isn't anything evil. It's anything like a zombie or a monster. Nothing comes at night in this movie except for fear, and the fear of the unknown, or the fear of another person, essentially. Like, at night, you can't see anything, you know? If you go up to the top of a mountain and you look over the valley or wherever you are, or over the world if you're on Mount Everest, and it's broad daylight, you can see for hundreds of miles. You see tons and tons of different places, tons of different things. At night, most of that is stripped away. Sometimes you can barely see what's right in front of you. And that's sort of what escalates human fear, is the unknown, the fear of the unknown. And that's what this movie plays around with, that I love. So we're about 40 minutes into the movie now, and we finally get to meet the other person's family who Joel Edgerton has graciously let into his home.
Travis, this is Will. His wife Kim and their son Andrew.
Hello.
Hi.
This is my
Hi.
wife Sarah and my son Travis. Hi.
How you doing?
You doing okay?
So these two families are living with each other now, and this is sort of where the movie stumbles a bit for me. We get to see these families sort of interact, and then we get this little montage of them kind of getting to know each other, of the other dad teaching the kid how to chop wood and whatever. And the montage is sort of where the movie trips just a bit for me, because it's such a somber, depressing movie, and then you kind of get this upbeat montage sequence with information established previously and after this montage. It's the same information, it's just sort of reinforced with a montage, and I don't feel like it was completely necessary. But this is the only little part that trips me up with this movie. Other than this little montage, this little pacing dip, I like everything else. So let's just move on past the one negative into some more positives. Okay, so I jumped way forward now. We're about 50, almost an hour into this movie now. And we passed a couple scenes of more character building, families coming together, and their dog running off and getting attacked by something off screen. And this scene, about an hour in, is we get the payoff of the dog running off. And we see the kid from the other family, the little boy, like walking, or not walking, but asleep in a completely different room, having a nightmare, and he's all sweaty. And the audience character brings him back to his family. And then he goes and sees that the door to the house is open.
Dad? Dad?
And that the dog is there. And what put the dog there? It doesn't matter. This scene is amazing. This scene is great, not just because of the tension that it builds, but because of the implications of the scene. Who put the dog there? It doesn't matter. It could have been someone that was sick, that was saving the dog and brought it back. It could have been a human that was trying to barge in just like the other family was, but realized that the house was occupied. It doesn't matter. And it reinforces the premise of this movie, and that these characters are so afraid of whatever's out there that they go through so many drastic measures to protect themselves, and that in this protection they start just imploding, and their fear takes advantage of them, and they just start to resent each other and hate each other, and the two families just get ripped apart because of this one scene. And this is the downward spiral of the movie that turns into one of the best third acts of any movie this year. So let's just jump to that.
It's Andrew. I think he may be sick.
What are you talking about?
I don't know. Andrew he was crying, and I was listening in the attic, and they said they needed to leave. What? Andrew was crying, and Kim said they needed to leave.
Do you hear anything?
How are you feeling?
What?
Okay, so basically we're at the end of the movie here. We're an hour and 15 minutes in, and this is the ultimate conflict. And there are a lot of things that happen in this scene. We find out that the young boy of the family that came into the house may be sick, and so Joel Edgerton is confronting them about it, and it just completely falls apart from here, where the one family wants to get away, and they know that if the other family finds out that the boy is actually sick, then they're done for. And there's one thing that this scene does very well, is that the aspect ratio difference comes into play here again. Only it's much tighter. It's even tighter than the nightmare sequences. And this implies that this is not just a nightmare. This is real. And when it's real, it's even more terrifying. These things happening in real life would be more terrifying than they would be in a nightmare. Because it is a nightmare. It's a real life nightmare happening right before you. And these families are just exploding just because of one little thing that potentially might not even be might not even be what they think it is. And this scene is great. This scene it perfectly captures what I love about this movie. And it puts the characters that you've gotten to know and gotten to like in a situation where they're all the bad guy, really. Everyone in the scene is the bad guy. They all do horrible things to each other, and most of them die. Most of the characters die before doing horrible things to each other. And it's this little thought, this little theme that goes through the entire movie that really punctuates my love for this movie. It's the theme, the idea that the just basic fear can completely take a hold of a person and drive them to do things that they otherwise wouldn't do. And it leads them to do these horrible things like beating somebody with a rock, shooting other people, shooting children. It's just insane. It's just an insane conclusion to a movie that is wonderful. But it adds a little exclamation point to this movie, where it just ends on this awesome sequence of horrible nightmare. All right, let's skip right to the very end of the movie, where we see another nightmare sequence with this young kid that's essentially the audience. thinking about it through the audience's perspective, the kid gets sick and he is dead, and when he dies, so kind of does the audience. The movie ends when the kid dies. The movie is over. It has one shot without him in the movie. One shot, and that just is sort of to heavily imply what's happened to him, what's happened to you, really, what is about to happen to you. And that is just the best thing. The last shot of this movie is just the best. The flat shot of Joel Edgerton and his wife just staring at their hands on the table with one empty seat. And it just shows that fear got the better of them. 4 people are dead because they were afraid that something may have happened. They don't even know if it actually does. We don't see it. They don't see it, I'm assuming. They don't know. So all of this horrible nightmare stuff has happened because they were afraid. And that's just awesome. And I hope that some of my thoughts I've been able to gather together a little bit and show you why I think it's one of the best movies of the year, and really, really meticulously dive into why I think it's one of the best movies of the year. So yeah. Anyway, if you like this sort of idea, this couch commentary thing, I sort of threw this together very quickly. If you like this video, if you like this thing, leave a like down below, a comment what you think. I like it, so I'll probably do it regardless, but you could maybe sway me. Probably not, but maybe. So anyway, I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.